Hey folks, I'm Rob Franick. I'm editor-in-chief here at the Princeton Review, back again to answer questions that I am near certain are in your noggins about college admission and testing and financial aid, literally the works. Folks, we're going to jump right in. In the past 2 years of time, there has been one ridiculously huge change to standardized testing, even without some multiple choice answer choices to consider. I know that you all know what this change is. The SAT has moved from a pencil and paper test to a digital one. We are now, of course, fully in to the digital SAT era, but we shouldn't forget that this is a major change because the goalposts have changed. You'll not be told to bring a number 2 pencil any longer. You'll not have to fill in any form by hand. You will no longer have to listen to a proctor needlessly explain how to properly fill in bubbles on a Scantron sheet. And with any big change, people start to talk about what's different, and they say all kinds of things. Number 1 on my list, it's just like an online quiz. Number 2, it's the same thing, but just on a computer. And number 3, it's not viewed the same way by colleges. Folks, as we've done before in past videos, let's do a little truth-telling. None of those 3 points that I just rattled off are at all true. But here's the thing. If you're anything like our students here at the Princeton Review, you have one burning question on your mind, and that question is the SAT harder than it used to be? And undoubtedly, you will hear from teachers and counselors and even other students who have already taken the test giving their opinions. Some will say it's easier, others will say it's harder. So that is the question that we are going to tackle today. Is the SAT harder than it used to be? And spoiler alert, it's a mixed bag of answer choices, but we're going to walk through them all. Here's the thing that I tell all of my students here at the Princeton Review. Yes, the digital SAT is harder. It is harder because, and this is where you might be surprised by my answer, it is harder because you need to learn an entirely new testing app. The College Board, the creators of all things SAT, not only turned the SAT into a digital entity, but they put it into their own proprietary Blue Book testing app, their application, right? This adds an extra layer of complexity to preparing for the SAT. Not only do you need to know how to tackle the reading, writing, and math questions on the SAT, but you also need to know how to navigate the app's layout and its functionality. If you don't understand the digital platform, you will waste too much time working out how to use its features, its timing feature, its annotation function, its mark for review button, its option eliminator tool, and of course the section review page. It will rob you of time that would be far better spent answering questions, which of course is the main task of any standardized test. So, taking the digital SAT is harder because you need to learn the intricacies of the Blue Book app. All doable, but it requires some time to feel comfortable. But on the other hand, no, it's not harder because the SAT is still testing the same thing. Let's remember that the pencil and paper incarnation of the SAT had a reading section, a writing section, and 2 math sections. The new digital SAT has a reading and writing section and a math section. The test has switched some question formats, but it still promises to cover the same skills and knowledge from your high school English and math classes. And let's also remember that's what the SAT has always done. So the real challenge for the SAT isn't the content, but how that content is presented. And let me be clear, let me be 1000% clear that you have encountered the material that is tested on the digital SAT in your classes to date. And the SAT won't require you to recall the Great Gatsby, the themes of the Great Gatsby, or the details of the Missouri Compromise, or even the structure of an atom. The digital SAT, just like its pencil and paper predecessor, tests English and math skills. That may very well be things that you learned in high school, but also things that you learned in middle school or even elementary school. So in large part, the digital SAT isn't harder, it's fundamentally just like it has always been. But there's another not so teensy reason to say yes, it does feel like a harder test because it's a computer adaptive test. The SAT is not only taken on a laptop or a tablet, but it's a computer adaptive test. That means that the second set of questions, now the College Board calls those modules, but those second set of questions that you'll see on both the reading and writing section as well as the math section depends on your performance on the first module. If you do well, then you'll be rewarded with more difficult questions in that second section. If you don't perform so well, you'll get less difficult questions in that second section. You won't know whether you receive more or less difficult questions in that second module on the SAT until you receive your scores back. Guessing about the level of difficulty on your exam is also impossible. So do not waste your time trying to figure out what those are during your actual test. And let's also remember, what's easy for you isn't always easy for everyone else. And not every question on the more difficult section of the SAT will be that difficult. It's the mix of questions overall that will be more difficult. The computer adaptive nature of the SAT makes everything more complex than it used to be on the pencil and paper test. So I will say it again, the SAT is harder because it's a computer adaptive test. But we could also say no. It's an easier test because it's an hour shorter. The SAT is an hour less of test time than it used to be. This is glorious news for students. You will be sitting for just a little over 2 hours of testing time, while students before you had to make it through 3 hours of testing. One of the surprise challenges for students taking the SAT has been just doing anything requiring that amount of mental energy for that amount of time, that focus for that amount of time. But another benefit for the SAT is the shortened administrative time overall. You'll not only be testing for less time, but you'll be spending less time hearing from your proctor explain how to take a standardized test and detailing the timing for each section. That said, we could also say yes, this test is harder because there is a brand new question types on the digital SAT. When the College Board announced that it was making the SAT digital, everybody focused on now it's going to be taken on a device. But the College Board also added new kinds of questions to the test itself. In particular, in the reading and writing section, you now have one short passage for each question rather than one passage for a handful of questions. Each question in this new incarnation is discrete from all others. You'll also need to do things like evaluate notes and to construct an argument for them. Now, no student who took the pencil and paper test for the SAT ever had to do that. And some of the questions that have always frustrated students on the SAT in its past incarnation or the current one, fill in the blanks, vocabulary, nitpicky grammar, or certainly trigonometry, they are all still there in the digital incarnation. The SAT is harder because it still has all of the things that made it difficult in the past and more. Due to those other changes, we can also comfortably say that no, the SAT is not harder, because there is now a built-in calculator for every math question. One of the worst feelings on a standardized test is missing a math question because you miscalculated basic arithmetic. Using a calculator can always help you avoid that particular pitfall. Now, the SAT not only allows for a calculator on every math question, but it provides you with a calculator itself. The College Board, again, the creators of all things SAT, in their Blue Book testing app, it has a Desmos calculator built in. That means that you can see a full graphing calculator with literally the click of a button for all math questions. Of course, you need to know exactly how to use the Desmos calculator, and mistyping an equation is always going to be a problem with calculator applications, but you'll be able to check your math when you sit for the SAT. So friends, let's wrap up here. Whether the SAT is harder now as a digital test really depends on how you look at it. Most importantly, these things do not make it easier or harder for all students. Some students are better at computer-based tests, like other students are better at math than English. If you want to see how difficult the digital SAT really is, you can sit for a full-length free digital practice test on our website at princetonreview.com. I'll put the link below in the chat. You can also go to our website. You can go and do that today, tomorrow. You could do it this weekend. When you're done, you will receive a score report back detailing your strengths and your weaknesses on the new digital SAT. That means that you will know where you need to get your SAT score to where you wish. If you have any questions on the digital SAT or anything else on college admissions, you can put it right into the chat here. I will do my level best to answer them. Also, if you want to subscribe to our channel, I would be delighted for you to do so. We are tackling all sorts of questions on admission, financial aid, and certainly testing topics. My name is Rob Franek. I'm editor-in-chief of the Princeton Review. Signing off for today. Be well.